There are only 5 places in the world where people regularly live over 100. Scientists call them blue zones, and the island of Sardinia is one of those. Researchers spent years trying to figure out why. Was it the community? Was it the terrain? Was it what they ate? And these were all important factors, but they kept coming back to one single factor, and it's what the old men of the Barbagia region did every single day, sometimes more, and it was they drank this. I'm tasting every grape variety in the world, all 10,000 of them. Most get 60 seconds over on my shorts, but occasionally a grape variety comes along with a story more interesting than 60 seconds. And today, that is Cannonau. And it's a story that starts not in a winery, but in a stone tower 3,000 years ago. I visited Sardinia recently on holiday, which was amazing, but you can't help but notice all these kind of stone towers dotted all over the island. You can see them when you're driving around. They're amazing. And then when you come into land, you can just see them. I sort of assumed they were 15th, 16th century because they're in really good nick. But I've got an interest in history, so I was looking online, looked on Google. Turns out they are Bronze Age. I was shocked because this predates Rome and it predates Carthage. These unbelievable stone towers were built by the ancient Nuraghe civilization, and this existed between 1800 and 500 BC, and they are absolutely all over the island. There are about 7,000 of them, but there may be as many as 10,000. Obviously, I had to take the family and drag them to one, so we went out on a blistering hot Sardinian afternoon to get close to one. So I dragged my daughter to get a picture by a barbed wire fence with cars rushing by. In the UK, there'd be a visitor centre, a car park, National Trust, pay a load of money, but here they're just part of the landscape. So why on earth am I waffling on about Bronze Age stone towers? What has it got to do with Cannonau grape? Well, interestingly, to this story, archaeologists within these stone towers have found clay pots with residual fermented Cannonau grape, which dates those clay pots to around 1200 to 1000 BC. This is one of the oldest pieces of evidence of cultivated winemaking in the whole of Europe. And I love it when two of my passions come together, history and wine. So a little bit more about blue zones. So back in the early 2000s, a demographer called Gianni Pez and a medical statistician called Michel Poulain started mapping where in the world people were living the longest. Sardinia kept coming up, especially the mountainous interior, the Barbagia region. They marked the longevity clusters on a big map in blue ink. So originally they named it in the blue zone. They called it the blue zone and the name stuck. What they found and what made Sardinia different wasn't just the diet, it was community, it was movement, it was a sense of purpose, but it was also our friend Cannonau. The men of Barbagia drank 2 to 3 small glasses a day. Come on lads, and Cannonau, it turns out, has 2 to 3 times the flavonoid and anthocyanin content of most other red wines. Both are powerful antioxidants. Specifically, these compounds have been shown to protect against the production of inflammatory cytokines at a cellular level, which I think is a good thing. Nobody is claiming red wine is going to make you immortal. If you're like me and you're looking for any scientific detail that makes drinking red wine a good idea, even if it's vague, then this seems like a pretty good one to be drinking. The history of Cannonau is tied closely to Garnacha, a grape from Spain. The Spanish have long argued that Cannonau is actually Garnacha, their grape brought to Sardinia during the centuries when Sardinia was under Spanish rule. The Sardinians aren't having any of this. Their argument is those Bronze Age jars in the towers, which predates Spanish rule by 2,000 years. If the grape was here in 1200 BC and the Spanish didn't arrive until the 14th century AD, it doesn't add up. DNA analysis has complicated things further. Cannonau and Garnacha are genetically identical, which means one is the original and one is the transplant. The scientific consensus currently leans towards Sardinia. I like to believe the Sardinian. So the example we've got today is a Cannonau di Sardegna, and it's made by Antonella Corda, and she farms 2 small vineyards in the south, just outside Cagliari, inherited it from her grandfather and works only with Sardinia's native grape varieties. In 2019, Gambero Rosso, Italy's biggest wine guide, named her Emerging Winery of the Year. Okay, and for the taste, so it is quite translucent for what I assumed Cannonau to be, a little bit more a bit dark. You can almost see a hand through it. So this is obviously her style. I think maybe she's extracting less and going for more kind of elegant, pretty style. Yeah, on the nose. Now I think this is lifted, it's perfumed. There are sort of dried herb elements, dried thyme, and then it's all red fruit. Red cranberries, raspberries, maybe just touching into a little bit of blackberry, floral rose petal. It's really elegant. Yeah, lovely. I like it. And then that continues onto the palate. That red fruit, raspberry. The tannins I would have expected from a Cannonau maybe further north or from a different style to be really quite firm. These are quite soft and supple, really lovely sort of layer of acidity. But then there's this kind of, this weight to it that behind the kind of elevated lifted notes, there is this kind of solid layer to it as well, which you can't, I think, escape from. I have to say I tried a few Cannonau's when I was in Sardinia and they tasted nothing like this. I quite like this because it's fresh. Done half a bottle already. So the food match, yeah, I would have this with the local delicacy, which is roast suckling pig. You get that lovely crisp layer of skin that crackles up. Beneath it, that really unctuous, moist layer. And then that kind of, again, that really succulent flesh underneath. And this wine would go absolutely perfect with that. You've got the tannin there to combat the protein. And then I think this wine just kind of like lubricates that fat and that gorgeous skin. And what grows together goes together. Drink the local stuff with the local dish. So the verdict, we should drink more Cannonau. What I love is going and visiting places with wines I've never tried before, trying it when I'm out there and loving it and bringing it back and it actually tasting decent. This tastes good. And we're not in Sardinia. I'm in my kitchen. This is brilliant. I'm tasting every grape variety in the world, and go over to my shorts to follow my journey. If you want to watch the short version of this, it was episode 19. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Whooshka. Till next time.